Hey everybody, Ryan McCaffrey with IGN, back with part 3 of our Broken Age Let's Play series with project director himself, Tim Schafer. Project lead, I apologize, and I want to make sure to get the title exactly correct.
Yeah, well, they all work for me. Here we are in the 36th hour of our Broken Age Marathon.
Call now, make your donation. Operators are standing by. But Tim, we've been talking about the Kickstarter, we've been talking about the talent that's found its way into the game. We've talked about sort of the tough decisions that have to be made along the way, and started to ask you a little bit about some of your older games, and you're coming back to the point-and-click adventure genre for the first time, and I think you tweeted out it was 16 or 14 years?
Well,
16 years, 98 from Grim Fandango.
Grim was 98, right? But the last point-and-click was Full Throttle, and that was 95.
That's true.
That's almost 20 years.
That's right, because you almost forget that Grim Fandango was on that funny new 3D engine that was
people don't realize what a
driven,
commercial move that was. They're like, 3D is so hot. Let's move to 3D. And also, a lot of games, the engine that made me realize how I wanted to go into 3D was a game called Bioforge. If you ever played Bioforge?
I remember the name. I don't think I played it.
You were kind of this resurrected half mutant human with robot parts and stuff, and you're on this space station. And it was a really interesting game, but it was pre-rendered backgrounds with 3D objects in front of it, and so I thought that's really interesting. And I loved the way that the controls worked, because if you walked through a room, you just held the go forward key, move forward, and the camera would switch a whole bunch of times, and it was so cinematic. I was like, that's amazing. And so we had those tank controls that people later would be like, that's terrible. Why'd you do tank controls? These things,
seem like a good idea.
In hindsight. And they get so used to it when you're making it, you're like, of course this is But you can plug a controller into that game and play it what we called Mario style at the time, which was like Mario 64 had just come out. And so we made that work. But
so now that all your old games are basically grains of sand on the massive Disney beach, I mean, is that at least as far as the IP goes? I'm curious, does Grim Fandango exist somewhere, like in your life? Is there like the source code and all the? Do you have it somewhere, or could it?
Well, of course, taking those assets from LucasArts would have been a violation of. I know people.
So I know not. People who have it. I just want to make sure it's not lost.
It's not lost. Some things are lost. It's funny how things you wouldn't think, like we talked about. If we ever wanted to make a HD version of Psychonauts, like a lot of those cutscenes were pre-rendered, and some of those original cutscenes, like the source materials, those are lost. They have to be reanimated from scratch. But we still have the team around to do that. But Grim, no, there's various people who, a lot of programmers who just have a build on their computer when they left, or there's various aspects of the source code, and I know people who have reverse engineered it and got it to run and. So it's definitely it's just out there. It's more of a legal problem where it's owned by someone else. And
well, of course, but just because it would just be a sad thing if Grim Fandango's original code
had
was
passed
gone
into the Ninth Underworld. Yes.
So fortunately, that is not the case.
Someday, it's just big companies don't necessarily like to just let you take things that they own, and they also don't always have time to even talk about things that are not making zillions and zillions of dollars.
What you're telling me is, I'm reading between the lines, you have called and asked about Grim Fandango.
Well, I mean, since I left that company, since I left Lucas, I've always tried to get the rights back to various games I made, but it's always.
Can we kickstart that?
I think.
I'm actually being serious.
You specifically cannot. I think if I'm right, I don't know where there's a barrier. I don't know if that's a Kickstarter rule or if that's. Companies don't like you to do that, but you can't kickstart just getting the rights back to something, which is crazy.
Can we just kickstart money for you with the purpose of going to do that, and then if they say no, you can just make another adventure game?
I mean, at various times we've offered money. It's not even necessarily that. It's just that they don't. Like George Lucas just would not sell IP. It's just his thing. No, I only acquire them.
Yeah, I've talked to Ron. He's tried to get Monkey Island back before, and they're just like, no. But yet they gave Sam and Max back to
they licensed
Dave. They licensed it. Okay, so that.
Well, Sam and Max, the actual characters Sam and Max are owned by
Steve Purcell, right?
Okay, he created them, and he managed to negotiate that, which was really smart back in the day, and because he wanted to do other things with them. Let me make the spoon really happy.
All right, I forgot we're playing a video game.
It's a very enthusiastic spoon. You don't plan it when you're writing a script, but this characters like the spoon end up being
hilarious.
My favorite character.
Yeah.
Everything he says is just fun.
I can't wait to be in your mouth again. That was one of my favorite lines in the game.
Sounds dirty when you say it.
I know. That's why I'm not a good voice actor.
I was wondering. There's a review on Christian-based gamer, and our sexuality got a couple dings for sexuality, and I was like, what? In this game? Oh, yeah, that's right. The spoon. The spoon is not just the favorite character. He's also the sexiest character.
Right.
Or the most sexual. But he doesn't mean it. It's innocent to him. So obviously it's just the player who's filthy.
Yeah, it's my problem.
Yeah, it's not the spoon's problem.
Just like the very ongoing stool joke towards the end.
I don't know what you're talking about. Here's Jennifer Hale and Elijah Wood.
It's a lot of talent on the screen right now.
A lot of talent.
So
and ice
with
cream.
with LucasArts unfortunately gone, which is a super. I mean, you had to be. That made you sad that day, right? I mean,
well, kinda, yeah. I was surprised by how I felt a little tug of like, oh, that's kind of.
Yeah, even though
I felt like they were going out of business for a long time.
Right, which
because they just they just had trouble, and they made games, but they're still hiring, and there were really these amazing projects that seemed to be going really well, and then like all of a sudden someone would get fired, and then a bunch more people would get fired, and then they'd start over again. And it was frustrating to watch. In some ways, I'm happy that people don't have to go through that anymore. Right. Like the let's see. Do you want to help the avalanche victims, or catch the runaway train, or defend the friendship circle? Let's go out space.
Yeah, I'll go out in
We're
space.
in space. We should just go out into space.
Let's do that. So, I mean, now that they are gone, I wonder if you'll have an honest answer for this. When they
still have lawyers.
Well, they tried to make Full Throttle sequels a couple times.
Oh yes.
Was that just kind of insulting with you gone and Roy Conrad had passed?
Well, not insulting. I mean, I felt.
Did it bother you?
I think people. Yes, it did bother me a lot. Again, that was one of the reasons
it bothered
I started.
me.
It was one of the reasons I started Double Fine is because, not that incarnation, but there was actually even an earlier incarnation of Full Throttle 2 that I heard about through the rumor mill. Like
it was an action game, wasn't it?
More or less more actiony, but the main thing is that someone said, I said, what are you working on? They go, oh, Full Throttle 2. And I was like, what?
What?
There's a what? And that's when I realized what it means to own your properties. Like Steve Purcell owns Sam & Max. And like, oh, I wish I owned Full Throttle. I still do. And that was really frustrating, but I realized it was fair. That was the deal. George Lucas paid me to make that game, and so he owns it, and that's fair. If I want to own stuff, I got to start my own company, so that's where Double Fine came from. So, and then I just got in contact with a witch doctor and burned some sage. And
signed the deal with the devil, and you're good to go.
Yeah, and then that game got canceled, so I'm sorry to everyone who's working on it, but it had to be done.
So, according to the always dead-on website called Wikipedia, full of nothing but facts. You were working on an unannounced action-adventure game for PlayStation 2 that got canceled.
Yeah,
what was
doing
that?
A PlayStation game. It was going to be a spy game. When I pitched, after Day of the Tentacle, I pitched a document to management about what I wanted to do next. They said, pitch us like 5 ideas.
Yeah.
And so Dave and I both worked on, Dave Grossman and I both worked on different documents, and I pitched a biker game, and I pitched a Day of the Dead game, I pitched a spy game, and then I pitched a sequel to Monkey Island and a sequel to Day of the Tentacle.
Like a Monkey Island 3 at that point, or Monkey Island?
At that point, it would have been 3, I think, yeah.
Okay.
3. And that document and almost got us fired, or got me, they're like, you pitched so many things in here, I don't even think you want to make any of these. They were like, I was like, well, I want to make all of them. And so I did get to make Full Throttle, and I did get to make Grim Fandango, and I was starting to work on the spy game, and then I had that realization that I wanted to own the stuff I work on.
Yeah.
The spy game was going to be good, but it had a lot of ideas in it, and it was funny. It had some ideas about meditating, because I had this... maybe
let's catch the runaway train.
Yeah, you want to catch the runaway train?
Whatever you want to do. It's your game.
I want to cease this dangerous avalanche.
You got to eat them out. Eat them out of the ice cream.
Always with the filthy stuff.
That came out wrong.
So this is part of Shay's problem, is that he's going on all these missions, but he starts to feel that they're a little more harmless than they claim to be, and the mom's just putting him on to entertain him. These guys are just cute. I think the yarn pals are super cute. The mom just knit
awesome.
them with her giant knitter arms. She's knit these friends for him to keep him
where are
couple.
the actual yarn plushy versions of these in the Double Fine store? Do they exist yet?
We talk about that all the time. We hope.
Discovered a strange feature over here, computer.
Just ignore that, Shay.
Also the Vela and Shay, dolls. Let's get those going.
Okay.
for because we have desks here at IGN that we like
I
to
know,
fill
I
with video game
don't see any
things.
spare room on those desks. I'm seeing a lot of.
Don't worry. I'll figure out how to get you out of there soon.
We know you will. We believe in you, Shay.
Let me see if I have anything in my inventory that would help.
Well, there is a talking spoon.
Yep. Oh, I have a present.
Ooh.
Come on. Puppy.
So I got out in space. Oh, it's a grabbing Gary.
Gary robot. Can't wait to put it in the trash. I mean, my collection.
Grabbing Gary is my also favorite character in the game because Grabbing Gary, you can grab so many things with him,
Nah, Gary won't pull that.
except for a couple of things he doesn't want to grab.
Right.
And that was so fun reading those with Elijah in the studio because he had to read like 20. Nah, Gary doesn't want to grab that. Gary doesn't grab things that are made out of synthetic
Gary's
materials.
worried it might start an avalanche if he grabs that.
But if you ever can find a thing that Gary will do, it's very satisfying, I hope. Aha!
Yeah, there might be something during the course of the game that he might do for you.
I
found
hope
out.
So. I hope so. Maybe in Act 2. But a lot of this was inspired by a web game called Every Day the Same Dream. Have you ever seen that? It's
No.
a flash game where you wake up in the morning, you get dressed, and you go to work, and then you do it again.
It's like a Groundhog
and
Day
again
thing.
and again. Yeah, and then you realize, wait, I could actually mess up this routine and get out of it. And that game, I think, did even a lot more elegantly than we did it. But it was very inspiring to try this kind of routine because it was scary to try something where the character's really bored and frustrated, and you want the player to feel that, but not feel it to the point where they're actually really bored and frustrated. But they're bored and frustrated, but they're entertained and frustrated. That's the tricky thing. So I think, or wait, one more.
We have to defend.
So it seems like I was very surprised. I had a big whoa moment at the end of part 1, and it seems like a lot of people out there did as well. Did you expect it to be a big gotcha kind of moment, or do you think more people were gonna just be like, oh yeah, of course?
The cliffhanger at the end of that moment, that scene, how I wanted that to go, was kind of the flash of inspiration for making the game. Because when I had this old idea of the sacrifice victim, and I had this idea about being alone in space, and I thought of the way that they could relate together,
Yeah.
that was why I wanted to make it. So I've been sitting on that secret for like 2 years, worried that it would get out, because we're making a documentary, and they're
Sure.
always showing our whiteboards, and they're showing
Yeah,
our...
they're always blurred out though.
That's why, because they say things like that are very incriminating.
So that was pretty satisfying to you on to start
yeah,
hearing the reactions.
The funny thing was on our forums, one guy guessed it like a year ago, and we're like, we gasped. We're like, should we delete his comment? And we're like, no, that'll draw more attention to it. Just let it go.
Right.
And no one responded to him. Everyone else was just like, yeah, whatever,
Huh.
and just moved on with their own theories about it. And so I was happy for that guy because he gets to now say, I saw it, you guys. No one else did, but also no one really caught it because and it's not like. I just want people to be entertained, and they won't be as entertained if they know. So, please don't even try to guess it. Just relax and play the game and be entertained.
I was. So
I also hope we actually make all this cereal in the end.
yeah. Oh, I scrolled through. My favorite was the Soylent Green reference. That was. I think that's what I ended up eating. Were those?
Mm-hmm.
So do you still talk to Marcus Person, to Notch? You know, and it was the same time 2 years ago as the Kickstarter launch. We all thought that your big announcement, which turned out to be the Kickstarter, was going to be that Notch was single-handedly going to fund Psychonauts 2 because he is a ludicrously wealthy man, and in fact, he is even more ludicrously wealthy now than he was 2 years ago.
Yeah, and we talked about it. And I told him that I thought, at the time I was thinking doing a Psychonauts 2 would cost like $10 million.
Right.
And now I think, now the next generation is here, I think it would cost like $15 million. I mean, you'd want it to be, I think.
But that's like couch cushion money for him. He's sold, since 2 years ago, in the last 2 years, he's sold over, I think 12 million copies on Xbox alone. Plus now it's about to come out for PS3.
He's doing all
and he gets to keep like most of that money.
He's doing good.
So you should call him back up.
Well, I think he was surprised by how much more than he thought it was going to be. He thought it was going to be like maybe $4 million.
Shall we solve this real quick before we have to get out of here?
Or do we not?
Or do we let it go?
This is one of my favorites. The spoon is always the secret to comedy.
Well, we're stuck in the snow.
It's a little early for that. Why not yell at the bridge man first?
You could.
I got stuck here. I kept trying to use Grab and Gary because we got the stretched out arms of our yarn friends. I thought for sure. I overthought the heck out of this
You can
puzzle.
try using Grab and Gary.
But the answer is no. Safely through. And so the cycle continues, the cycle of boredom.
There's a kind of Easter egg, kind of a backer reward coming up, which is we have these 2 super backers where people at a certain tier got to be a character in the game.
Ah, yeah. Was Alex Rogopoulos
Alex
one
Rogopoulos
of them?
is one of them.
The CEO of Harmonix,
Yep,
founder of Harmonix.
and a big friend of our company's. And this guy, I don't know if he looks familiar to you. He's the conductor from Ticket to Ride.
Oh, real? Okay.
Because Days of Wonder. Wait, Worlds of Wonder? Wait, I got that right.
Wait.
You know, the publisher of Ticket to Ride
Yes.
is also one of our super backers, but there was such a big group of people, they just chose that guy to represent them
Nice.
in the game. Okay. Should we... Oh, wait a second.
Fake train wreck, please.
Now it starts to repeat. And this is where people start to go like, wait, what's
There's a
going
puzzle.
on? Why is it the same thing?
I love the Fisher-Price themed cockpit there. That
Yeah.
clearly was he's clearly it's been there since he was an infant
Yeah.
with no updating.
What's that, son? Did you say wake up the bridge man?
But what if I did this instead? Ah, I'm stuck on a puzzle. I'm going to switch to Vela. Where was she?
Hi.
So I have a couple more questions for you, Tim, before I let you go. I'd be curious.
Yeah, why?
I'm always interested when I talk to just awesome game designers like you, whose games I've loved for years.
You're awesome.
Who are your idols and heroes in the game design world, and actually, quite frankly, and in comedy as well, since many of your games are so awesomely funny.
Gosh, I mean, I think for writing, like growing up, a big impact on me was Kurt Vonnegut. You know,
Yeah.
the writing, because it's very human. It's very humanitarian. It's very like funny, but it's also sad. But just because in the way that human life is, you know, both these things. And but when I first played games, it was the Scott Adams text adventures that made me really inspired, and probably why I make adventure games is Scott Adams, and not the guy who draws Dilbert, but another guy. And then now I've got cloud shoes, so I don't sink as much.
Yeah, you're good to
You know,
go.
if you double click on the doors, they
I
walk,
figured
just
that
like
out
in
quick. Yeah,
Throttle.
that was a handy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody thought that was new. I said, no, Tim's been doing that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, adventure games often have a lot of backtracking. Oh my gosh, there's my knife. See how I try and play up the player's discovery. Yeah, good thing.
Yeah, you've never played this game before. This is your first time.
This actress is Hynden Walsh, who plays Princess Bubblegum on Adventure Time, which is my favorite show. That show was a big inspiration. I mean,
Interesting.
it's crazy if you know Scott Campbell, one of our original artists at Double Fine, kind of a founding art director. He his style is so similar to that show. It was like watching that show. I was like, "Are you working on this show?" But no. So we got to meet Pendleton Ward. He's also in this game, the creator of that show.
What did you say your name was?
I'm curious, what do you think of what Telltale has done with the adventure game genre? They've obviously found a lot of success, but they've sort of
What are you doing?
gone in a slightly different direction than the sort of
Yeah.
traditional point and click
I mean,
way.
I think they've taken. There's a branch off of adventure games on the tree of games, and then the big branch of narrative-focused games.
Right.
There's this branch that I would say, I don't know if it was started by, but definitely a round of it I think was made popular by Heavy Rain, where
Yep.
it was not so much about puzzles but about player choice.
Mm-hmm.
So the player could make these choices, and the choices have consequences, and they really direct your. I think starting with Jurassic Park, they were playing around with that, and when they kind of hit their stride with Walking Dead, it seemed to really resonate with people, and.
How do you get to the eggs and the
And I think that's really interesting. But whenever I think about making one of those kind of games, I just get a headache because I think about branching storylines. I just know how many. Like I could just see that branching asset tree in my head. Of like, well, if you're gonna make all those, are you gonna make how many different endings are you gonna make? And they have very clever ways to do it because
Yeah.
if you play that game, you can feel them kind of collapsing back on themselves.
Right.
Like, whether you choose this woman or the guy or the girl to save at the drugstore. It's going to resolve later, and someone's going to get shot, and it's going
Yeah.
to clear that up for you later. It's not like the branches all lead to they're constantly expanding. Whoops. I'm gonna borrow the ladder.
That's the Tim Schafer's got to go alarm. So we will wrap up here.
Well, thanks for
Last
playing.
question: if you know, Telltale has been making a lot of great games based off of licenses. You've never been a license guy. Are there any licenses that, if there weren't any legal, if you could just have any license you want, is there any game you'd want to, any license you'd want to make a game out of?
It's tough. I mean, we've worked with licenses once with Sesame Street because
that's true.
I love
That's
Cookie
true.
Monster.
I mean,
got
you
to meet
personally,
Cookie
okay.
Monster, and that
Which was a great
That was
video,
great,
by
but
the
also
way.
shows how hard it is to work with other people's ideas because
Yeah.
we had ideas and then, we couldn't have. Latex balloons in the game because it's a choking hazard for kids. It's like you realize that I would be picky if someone else was making a second.
Sure,
game, so,
of course.
So there's just an extra kind of tax on how.
So
much
no,
work it
well
is.
the ideas will continue to pour forth
I
from
used
your
to
own
say
brain.
I would love to make a Road Warrior game just because Road Warrior is one of my favorite
Yeah.
movies of all time. But I think someone is making one now. And it
There's
looks
a
pretty
Mad
promising.
Max game, yeah,
Yeah.
Avalanche.
And Avalanche is great, so I think they'll do a great job with that. And if it was just an excuse to meet George Miller, I would totally do it.
Well, be sure to play Broken Age if you haven't already. It's available on Steam. But actually, by the time this video airs, it's available now because it's
Tuesday?
January 28th. Yeah,
Is it January 28th?
it's we're in the future, Tim.
Oh man, that means I'm late with my doc. Gotta get some work done.
So pick it
I
up.
hope you play it. I hope you enjoy it and like it. It's we're really proud of it. I mean, really,
should be.
We
It's
put
brilliant.
our heart and soul into it, and I think it came out beautiful. I think the music, and the sound effects, and everything, all the actors, and the puzzles all come together to make something that we're really happy with. So I hope people like it.
I do. That's one person. One
Woo!
plus one. Thank you, Tim. And for more on Broken Age and everything Double Fine is up to, you guys are right down the block, so we get to see a lot. So you're already in the right place. Keep it right here on IGN.